Welcome back to another one of my videos. Today is going to be a bit different and special because I'm going to be making a typical Swedish pastry. So during the summer I went on a trip to Sweden, which was absolutely amazing, and I really hope to go back one day. So if you actually are interested in watching my travel videos, you can watch them up there. So no matter where I went, I would always be able to find a place that sold a Kanelbullar, which is a cardamom bun, or a Kanelbullar, which is a Swedish cinnamon bun. Also, if you're Swedish and you're watching this, I'm so sorry for butchering those names. I'm trying, I promise. So if you want to see me recreate one of the most famous Swedish pastries, keep watching the video. So the first thing we need to make is our dough so we can get that proofing. So for that, you're going to need 250 milliliters of warm milk, 7 grams of yeast. You can also use fresh yeast, but in that case, you would use 21 grams or like 1 square. Then 50 grams of sugar, 400 grams of regular plain flour, 50 grams of softened butter, and then last but not least, half a teaspoon of cardamom. Now, I don't really like cardamom that much, which is why I'm just using half a teaspoon, but if you're a bigger fan of it, then you can also use 1 teaspoon. That all being said, we're going to activate our yeast. So all I'm going to do is add part of my milk and part of my sugar, and then just set that aside for like 10 minutes for it to bloom. And in the meantime, we can already add all of our other ingredients into our big mixing bowl. It's been like 10 minutes and the yeast is looking kind of bubbly and gross, so that it's perfect. I'm simply going to add this in with all the rest of my ingredients, and I'm going to let this knead for like 5 minutes or so. And then we want to make sure that our dough has come together to a nice ball and everything's kind of incorporated and that gluten is activated. And then I'm going to simply knead it once with my hands and let it proof. So the dough has enough fat in it that you probably don't need to flour your surface. So I'm just going to knead this together until I have a nice ball. Now you want to cover your dough with either a kitchen towel or some plastic wrap and let it proof for an hour to 2 hours. Now depending on how warm it is where you're letting your dough proof, it might not need 2 hours, it might just need an hour or 45 minutes, so just keep an eye on it. You basically just want it to be like double in size. So sometimes I'll actually preheat my oven just a tiny bit just so that there's a little bit of warm air in it, and then let my dough proof in the oven. That way it has like a really nice warm spot and I don't need as long for it to proof. But if you have more time, you can let it proof out naturally, but if you want to quicken it up a little bit, you can always do that. Now while the dough is doing its first proof, we can get to making the filling. So it wouldn't be a cinnamon bun without the cinnamon sugary ooey gooey center. So for that, you're going to need 1 tablespoon of cinnamon, 75 grams each of softened butter and brown sugar, and I'm also going to use a good splash of vanilla extract. We're simply going to add all of this into a bowl and mix it together until we have kind of like a paste-like consistency. Now that everything has come together, I'm just going to set this aside until we're ready to put everything together. Our dough has proofed for an hour and it's doubled in size, so we can continue making our cinnamon buns. I'm just gonna roll this out into a nice square, and I'm going to use a bit of flour to just dust my surface so that nothing sticks. Now you want to make sure to try and keep your dough as square as you can. That'll just make it a lot easier when you're rolling it out to get a square shape. So a good way to try to keep it as square as you can is as you roll it out to readjust the sides and kind of shape it into a square and then roll it out again. Now you basically just want a really nice big square. Mine happens to be 55 centimeters in length. So I'm gonna keep it like this. Now I'm gonna measure this out into thirds, and then I'm gonna simply spread my cinnamon butter onto 2/3 of my dough. I'm just going to use my offset spatula to try and spread this all the way to the edges as evenly as I can. Now regular cinnamon buns would just be rolled up and then cut into the nice little circles, but these ones are a little bit different. So I'm gonna fold in my first third over my second third. I'm gonna try and make it as even as I can. Get some of those air bubbles out. And now our last third is gonna get folded over that. So we're creating some nice layers. I'm just gonna slightly roll over this with my rolling pin to get out any air bubbles and make sure that all the layers are nice and together. Now we're simply gonna cut this into some nice even strips. So if you want your cinnamon buns to be a little bit bigger, you're gonna cut a little bit thicker of strips. And if you want them to be a little bit smaller and have a couple more cinnamon buns, you're gonna cut them a little bit smaller. So I think I want mine to be about 3 centimeters wide. So I think I'm gonna get out about 13 cinnamon buns. So I'm just gonna mark them off before cutting my strips. Now each of our strips is gonna get cut in half one more time, but not all the way through. You wanna leave about like a finger width at the very top. Now there's a couple different ways that we can shape these, but the first thing we're going to do is take both strands and kind of wrap them around each other. So we kind of have, I guess, like a rope. So we just want to twist it, and we can pull it a little bit to make it a little bit longer, kind of like this. Now you can either just roll it up and then pinch the ends together so that it doesn't open while you're baking it, and you have kind of like almost something like a knot like this. Or alternatively, instead of rolling it up like that, we're going to wrap it around our fingers 2 times and then take the end piece Bring it over and then wrap it underneath. And we have something that kind of looks like a knot, like this. Now, it really doesn't matter how you do it. I think they're gonna end up looking beautiful at the end anyways, so just do what's easiest for you. I'm just gonna place our cinnamon knots onto a baking sheet. You wanna spread them out a little bit since they are gonna proof one more time. I'm gonna cover these with our kitchen towel one more time and let it proof for 45 to 60 minutes. And in the meantime, we can preheat our oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit or 190 degrees Celsius. Now, while the oven finishes preheating, we can mix together our egg wash. So I'm just gonna use 1 egg yolk, which I already have in a little container there, and 1 splash of heavy whipping cream. Now we're gonna brush the tops of each of our knots until everything is coated in our egg wash. That'll just help get a really nice golden brown color in the oven. And I'm also going to top each of my buns with a little bit of coarse salt. Technically, you use really coarse sugar, but I figured that the salt would go really well with the sweetness of the cinnamon buns. So I'm not gonna add a lot, but I am just gonna add a little sprinkle. If you don't have any coarse salt like this or coarse sugar, don't worry about it. It's not that big of a deal, but I think it does look really pretty. Our cinnamon knots are going to wander into the oven for 15 to 20 minutes. You basically just want to make sure that they're nice and golden brown and that they've cooked through, and then they're all ready to eat. And there you have it. Our Swedish Kanelbullar are all finished. I think they turned out amazing. I'm going to force myself to wait for them to cool down at least a little bit before I dig in. But if you like this video, you can give it a thumbs up and let me know what you think and if there's any other pastries or cakes that you want me to make from around the world, because that's something I'm really interested in. And as always, the whole recipe is going to be in the description box as well.